Okay, so it was just 3 years ago that New Jersey claimed the win at what became known as the Battle of Trenton. As Thanksgiving, Hanukkah, Christmas, and New Year's in 2019 and 2020 came and went, residents here in New Jersey were in the fight of our lives to stop the religious exemption removal bill from passing in the New Jersey state legislature. Large sacrifices were made, and nothing about this victory was easy. People took time off of work at a moment's notice to be in Trenton. Parents removed their children from school to bring them to Trenton to take part in history and experience firsthand that this is how to exercise your rights to protest. This is the importance of religious freedom. And this is why you must hold your government and those in power accountable. There was a strong and noble commitment to be on the battlegrounds, to be one more face in the crowd, to be one more voice in the chant, and one more sign held up in the air for all to see. All of this is what became known as the Battle of Trenton. Let's walk through the timeline of some of the most unforgettable major events that culminated into the Battle of Trenton. It was April 2018 when, somewhat out of the blue, the Assembly Bill A3818 to remove the religious exemption was voted on and passed in the Assembly Health Committee. While this put advocates on alert, the bill sat without any further movement for quite some time. And so it was about 1.5 years later, in November of 2019, that the Senate bill S2173 to remove the religious exemption was scheduled to take a vote in the Senate Health Committee. Advocates and leaders across the state began to strategize, organize, and create sturdy information channels to alert every possible person in the state on what would lie ahead. The religious exemption removal bill was getting ready to move. On December 12th, 2019, New Jersey residents showed up in Trenton for the first protest, an outpouring of opposition against the religious exemption removal bill. The bill was put up in the Senate Health Committee that day for vote, and residents packed the room beyond its capacity. New Jersey residents lined up to give powerful testimony in front of that committee on why this bill should not pass. The composition of the Senate Health Committee was changed. 2 Democrats were intentionally removed from their committee seats, Senators Joe Lagana and Ronald Rice. Both senators were committed to voting no on our bill. Had they been permitted to attend their committee and vote, the religious exemption removal bill would not have passed that committee that day. Instead, their seats were replaced with senators who would ensure a yes vote on the bill, with Senator Sweeney, the Senate president, being one of those replacements. The bill passed the Senate Health Committee that day, and it was crushing. We left the Capitol with hoarse voices and exhaustion, knowing that the system had played out in a manner that felt corrupt and backhanded. Just 4 days later, on December 16th, we found ourselves back in Trenton with the religious exemption removal bill on the agenda in both the full Assembly and the full Senate. The bill was voted on and passed the full Assembly. The Senate session ran extremely long that day, with thousands of protesters outside in the cold rain, under the moonlight, chanting for hours and hours. Inside the State House, on the full Senate floor, Senator Vitale went back and forth like a mule between Senator Joe Lagana and Senator Sweeney in an attempt to coerce Lagana into voting yes on the bill. Finally, after more than 8 hours in session, Senate President Sweeney banged the gavel to close out the voting session. The religious exemption removal bill was not voted on that day because there were not enough votes for it to pass. Protesters left Trenton that day tired but hopeful. It was understood that Senator Sweeney, a man used to getting what he wants, was angry, embarrassed, and would be coming for revenge on the group he referred to as a bunch of moms banging drums outside. With Christmas around the corner and a promise from Sweeney that this bill will pass, New Jersey protesters were not ready to give up. On December 21st, Governor Murphy was hosting his annual holiday party at his home. It turned out that one of Governor Murphy's neighbors offered up their front lawn, and we quickly organized a grassroots demonstration. A sea of protesters and children lined the block leading up to Governor Murphy's steps, holding signs and protests. With bonfires blazing behind them, their collective chanting rang through the streets like a swarm of Christmas carols, while the who's who of Governor Murphy's guest list drove past them to attend the party at the governor's home. The Christmas and New Year's holiday came and went, but all the while the religious exemption bill was looming. On January 6th, a Jericho march was organized, and speakers such as Robert F. Kennedy Jr. came to speak to the thousands who showed up in solidarity once again in Trenton to oppose this bill. On January 9th, the notorious Declan O'Scanlan Amendment was made to the bill. The amendment proposed that the religious exemption be removed for public schools only, but could remain as a choice for private schools. This amendment was a total backfire and erupted in many legislators now wanting nothing to do with the bill. On January 13th, the session was closed. Senator Sweeney did not succeed in getting the votes he needed in order to pass the bill in the full Senate. With the session ended, the bill was essentially pushed back to the starting line, leaving Sweeney to reconcile his defeat by what he labeled just a bunch of moms banging drums. On January 13th, 2020, thousands of us who spent a collective 2 months battling in Trenton were finally able to breathe a sigh of relief. The Battle of Trenton was victorious. Let's take a look back now at some footage that captures some of these very special and powerful moments.
Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free?
You're broken down and tired of living life on the merry-go-round, and you can't find a fighter, but I see it in you, so we gon' walk it out. Move mountains, we gon' walk it out and move mountains. And I'll rise like the day. I'll rise unafraid. I'll rise up, and I do it 1,000 times again. And I'll rise up, I like the waves. I'll rise up, in spite of the ache. I'll rise up, and I do it 1,000 times again. The silence isn't quiet, and it feels like it's getting hard to breathe. And I know you feel like dying, but I promise we'll take the world to its feet. Move mountains, bring it to its feet. Move mountains. And I'll rise up, for that we have each other. And we will rise, we will rise, we will rise. Oh, we'll rise. I'll rise up, rise like the day. I'll rise up in spite of the ache. I will rise 1,000 times again, and we'll rise up. I like the waves. We'll rise up in spite of the ache. We'll rise up, and we'll do it 1,000 times again.
Dell just asked me what happened, and I'll tell you what happened. America happened.
Wow. Such an incredible video. Let's just take a moment and maybe a few deep breaths and just feel what that sequence of events was like almost 3 years ago.